As you may know, I recently picked up this 15-year-old cinema camera, the Panasonic AF101. Now back in 2011, this is the camera that they used to make the Raid on. Now cameras these days can cost an awful lot of money, so you know what, I thought let's have a look at this £300 eBay bargain and see whether it still stacks up in 2026. Now, will it fit in with my modern full frame cameras, the S5 Mark II, my G8 VI, a micro four thirds camera, the Pocket 3, a 1-inch camera, or even the iPhone 15 Pro? Well, over the last few weeks, I've been recording a few tests, so you can see those coming up soon. Until then, stay tuned, because what follows is a short film featuring my friend Seb Peckier, who is a vintage guitar restorer and maker, which I filmed with this, the AF101. There's a wide shot using the Pocket 3. I edited it, did a little grade in Dehancer. Let me know what you think of the edit, the grade, and whether you think this is any good. Comment down below about that, like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see the other videos, and until next time, I'll just leave you by saying enjoy the film. See you later.
When I was a kid, I always wanted to own an electric guitar, and like a lot of kids, Mum and Dad didn't always have the expendable cash to go out and spend a load of money on a posh electric guitar like a Fender Stratocaster or whatever. But anyway, needless to say, when I was a kid, I decided I would try. I used to love like taking shit apart, and that kind of has stuck with me all my life, as anyone that's worked with me doing what I normally do will tell you. I like taking stuff apart, and I will try to fix anything, whether it's my car, whether it's a camera. So basically a little side hustle for me was building guitars, and I sort of taught myself over the years to do it. And I was really, really lucky, because I just got to know through various work related things a lot of people that owned a lot of very cool guitars, and so I was able to study them. I was able to take photographs of them, take measurements from them. And during that time, whilst I was really interested in them, back in the sort of the 80s, there were lots of other people around the planet taking interest in certain guitars made by Fender and Gibson, and they became like super collectible, especially the old ones. They became like modern day antiques, and there was this huge boom for these vintage instruments, and I knew all about them. I knew the scale lengths of them. I knew the thickness of a headstock, you know, the size of a nut. I knew the thread of the nut. I knew everything. I'd studied them to within an inch of their lives, and so over the years I've kind of like quite enjoyed, just occasionally, and I don't do a lot of it, recreating and putting my own name against a guitar that's built in exactly the same way as some of those old guitars were back in the day. And that's what I'm doing now. And so currently I'm working on what would basically be a 1962, 63 Fender Stratocaster. That's what we're looking at here, is the neck. There are loads of people out there that build guitars, and there are loads of people out there that build guitars that look like they came from 1962, but when you look a bit closer, they're not. Everything from the timber that I use, to the paint that I use, to the finish that I use, you know, even if I have to hunt down actual like parts that are from 1962, like, that's what I'll do. So in 1962, Fender, they made two types of neck. They used rock maple, which is this stuff, and quite often you'll see guitars that have got just a maple neck, so all of it looks kind of this colour. There's one on the wall up there, look. You see, those are maple necks, and then you see the dark ones is where we've got like these are bass necks, but that's a Telecaster, and it's got a maple, one-piece maple neck. And then this is like a jazz bass neck, which is made two-piece, so it's got a rosewood fingerboard, the bit that your fingers touch, and then it's got a maple back to it. But in this instance over here, This is going to be a 2-piece neck for a Fender Strat that I started building 12 years ago. And it's kind of been sitting around doing nothing for ages. And this is the body that I built 12 years ago, which is far from perfect, actually. It's got some faults with it, but I kind of want to finish it off. So I've cut this and sprayed it, and it's in a 3-tone burst. The problems with it are, like a lot of these things, sometimes things go wrong. And when Fender made them, things went wrong too. So when Fender were busy in the 60s making these things, they would have cock-ups happen, drill bits would slip, or bits of wood would splinter out or chip out, or the paint finish wasn't perfect, and the paint finish isn't perfect on this, and there was a bit of breakout in the body. And so what they would do with these bodies is they would stick them on a rack, and they just get left, and kind of just like that. And then somebody would phone up and say, oh, you know what, I don't really want one that's in this sunbursty effect. I want one that's red. And Fender would go, okay, well, if we get one of these bodies that's not perfect, what we can do is we can just spray red over that, and it'll hide all the little problems with the body. And that's what they would do. So quite often, what you find now is you find guitars that have got like a red finish and the paint's falling off of them because they're so old, and underneath you see the sunburst. So you'll see like candy apple red over sunburst, you'll see black over sunburst. This one's going to be seafoam green over sunburst, using those indexing points. And of course, if this slides backwards and forwards at various points through these 2 gaps, you can see that basically it has to be square, right? Loads of people out there build guitars. It's been a thing that people have done for years. Of course, we're more aware of it now because we've got the internet. These days, there's lots of information on the internet about building guitars, and that's fine, you know, that's really good. It's nice that people are able to share their woodworking skills. But when I started doing this, there was no internet. But there was a guy an engineering guy from the UK called Melvin Hiscox, and he wrote a book called How to Build Your Own Electric Guitar. And when I was a kid, I got hold of that book and studied it, and yeah, he showed you how to do it. And so I got a lot of information from that. And then I guess over the years I've met quite a few people who are really, really good at doing it, like guys like Roger Geffen, who famously looked after and made guitars. He was a London-based guy, but guitar tech, but he worked on guitars for people like David Gilmour, and so I was lucky to bump into people like him. Then other people over the years, like Ben from Crimson Guitars, you know, again, South African guy, really talented luthier, just would open his door up and let you come in, and he would tell you stuff and just teach you stuff. And you'd always be surprised if you ask questions. People are happy to share what they know. I just kind of messed it up a lot and made a lot of mistakes. You know, all the time made mistakes. There's loads of sort of processes that go into building guitars. It's engineering, so whatever you do, it has to be repeatable. The amount of times I put necks onto the router table, which is a machine like this. That's a router, little baby one. I've got a great big one under there, and I'd be using this to trim timber, and I'd feed it in the wrong way and the timber would just shatter. And then I did things like, I don't know if I've got any here kicking about. Oh yeah, I have. So I did things like I wanted to know how Fender built necks. So I got hold of a Fender neck and I just cut it in half. So that's what a Fender neck looks like inside, and you can see that it's not just a piece of wood, it's actually got this is a 1-piece maple neck, so it doesn't have the rosewood on it. And you can see that it's got a rod, piece of metal in it. And the idea of the bent piece of metal is that the strings pull the wood that way, and the wood would bend. So if you put a piece of metal in that's curved the same way and then you tighten it up, this piece of metal tries to straighten and it'll go the other way. So the strings pull it that way, this piece of metal pulls it that way, and you can find a balance point to keep the neck straight. But you've got to understand what that curve is if you're going to make them yourself. And yeah, and these days, of course, it's all done on CNC machines and computer machines and AutoCAD and all that stuff, SolidWorks. But I don't. I do it all by hand. yeah, basically, I just pull shit apart, which is what I've done all my life. Pull shit apart and then find out how to put it back together again. Yeah, silly really, isn't it? So with this guitar, I don't know really what I'm going to do with it. Once it's finished, it'll probably get sold. Built guitars for some cool people, I guess. Oh well, I've worked with some cool guitarists first. I haven't built guitars necessarily for all of them, but I've worked on their guitars. So I worked with Jeff Beck, that's probably the coolest one. And then I built basses for a guy called Charlie Jones. I set up all and look after all of his basses. So he plays bass currently with The Cult, but he's worked with Goldfrapp and Page and Plant and anybody that's anyone. And he's a bass player, so I build basses for him and I maintain his basses. And he famously plays a see-through plexiglass bass. I've got one on the wall in there actually. And so I've built quite a few of those for him over the years and mended them because they tend to break. And I even helped the Fender custom shop. They wanted to build him a real Fender version of that see-through bass. I helped them do that build. As daft as that might sound, they'd never done anything like that, and they didn't know there were certain ways that those instruments are built that they didn't really know. And Scott Buell, who is the Fender master builder that built the instrument for Charlie, who did, incidentally, an amazing job on it too. I think I got an email from Fender Custom Shop from Scott asking me, how I did certain things. And he took that and was able to then build Charlie a real Fender plastic bass as opposed to a Seb-built plastic bass. But Charlie uses both, and he's quite happy using both. I guess I've done there's probably other people that I've done stuff, a lot of refinishing, paintwork. I used to sort of refinish all the old vintage guitars for Vintage and Rare guitars when they were around. Guys like Nigel Poulsford from Bush, worked a lot on his guitars. All sorts of people. I love painting. I hate sanding, and that's the nature of the beast. I hate sanding. I hate using router tables because they're freaking dangerous. But the paintwork bit, oh man, I love the paintwork bit. It's the coolest thing to paint a guitar and make it look brand new, and then you turn it into something that looks like it's 60 years old. I love doing that. They call it relicking these days. Call it whatever you want. But yeah, I like that part. That final thing where you make them look really old. I've got an example. Have I got an example? Yes, I have. Sorry. This is a bit extreme. It's a bit extreme. It's a bit extreme. I did it a long time ago. I sometimes practice on it. It's a jazz bass body. It's kind of cool. A lot of people really like them when they're really, really beaten up like that. They love them. They want them absolutely battered. I don't tend to batter them quite as much as this now. Not really, and not unless I know somebody really wants one that's hammered. You get the idea. So this one will probably be here for a while, get played a bit, and then it'll get sold. And it'll be seafoam green with a Brazilian rosewood neck, slab board, dated 1962-63. So yeah, that's basically the plan for this.